James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came forward to him, to Jesus, and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." Can you imagine that boldness? Jesus, do whatever I ask? But we do that, don't we? And he said to them, "What is it you want me to do for you?" And they said to him, "Grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your glory." But Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or to be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with?" They replied, "We're able." Then Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink, you will drink. And with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand or at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared." When the 10 heard this, they began to be angry with James and John. So Jesus called to them and said to them, "You know that among the Gentiles, those whom they recognize as their rulers lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. But it's not so among you. But whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you must be slave to all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life for a ransom for many." This ends our reading of the word. Please join me in prayer. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. If you read the bulletin very carefully, you may have noticed that the 2 photos I included quote Jesus saying, "The first shall be last and the last first," like our reading for today mentions. But did you notice that they cite chapter 9 of Mark, but we read from chapter 10? So did I choose photos with mistakes? Did I make a mistake putting chapter 10 in the bulletin? Are the people who created those memes misquoting Jesus? No. Jesus had that same discussion in both chapters. Different settings, same lesson. Tells me a couple things about the disciples and helps me to see something important for us and about us. The disciples were human. They wanted prestige and power, just like other humans. They were also slow to embrace the difficult, upside-down, topsy-turvy logic lessons of Jesus, just like us. What's this business of the first last and the last first, anyway? How can being servant of all possibly elevate me to first place? We know that's not how the world works. It's not how it looked to the disciples, and it isn't how it looks to us either. Unless we put our God glasses on and look at the world through the lenses of love. Let's consider someone who has been both first and servant of all. Jimmy Carter may or may not have been a great president. Historians and students of politics have very mixed opinions about his presidency, with valid criticism of some of his policies and practices. Still, he was leader of the strongest nation in the world at the time of his presidency. And now, he is even more inspiring to many of us in his retirement as he volunteers his time and energy to build homes with Habitat for Humanity. He is the servant of future homeowners. I'm sure in their eyes he is elevated on a pretty tall pedestal as he pounds nails to build their homes. He is their servant on those projects, freely giving himself to make someone else's life better. For me, the work he's doing right now is vastly important, and the role model he is now is probably even more important than his role model as president. Although his place in history as president is useful for drawing attention to the work Habitat for Humanity is important to the work itself. It does help causes to have a celebrity worker on the crew. Carter could have retired in comfort and spent his days on the golf course or in a comfy chair reading or whatever leisure activity he enjoys most. What he chooses to do with his retirement is to be servant to others. He could have helped those families by periodically writing a check to Habitat for Humanity that they could use as they needed for supplies or whatever expenses they have. And we're very much helped their building funds, but he chooses to stand side by side, building people up by building homes with them. The first is servant of all. For many of us, our employment has placed us in positions of being both servant and leader. In healthcare, the physicians and nurses and therapists and all the other professionals have leadership roles, positions of authority. But the way that we earn and maintain that authority is by serving our patients and their families well. In education, our teachers and administrators have authority over the students, but they earn respect through serving. Teaching and leading well are services to others. When we go to dinner at a restaurant, each employee there has been hired to serve us. Yet they have the power, because of their position, to either make or break our dining experience. They can give us the incredible gift of hospitality, and then we receive far more than a nourishing meal. I don't know the people who pick up my garbage every Monday morning. I've never seen them close up enough to have any idea at all what they look like. I assume they are male because I don't think I've ever seen a female with that job, or if I have, it's only been once. Those unidentified strangers are serving, but oh, what a valuable service. They're very important to me, even though I don't know their names or faces. My life is more pleasant and much healthier because they do their jobs. Whether they know it or not, they are vastly important to the safety and well-being of our society. Yet it's not a job many aspire to, certainly very important. In our culture and in most cultures, we tend to rank a person's value on the status of their employment and on their income level. Most of us have an internal desire to elevate our status. We don't want to stay at an entry-level job forever. We don't want to stay at a squeaking by income forever. We do have limits to what we're likely to accomplish in our lives. Very few high school football players will ever play in college. Even fewer will ever play in the NFL. Very few stars in high school drama productions will ever see their names on the big screen in a movie theater. Very few will be President of the United States. We are limited by numbers of positions available at the top and also limited by the social structures in place that define us and our possibilities. Still, we want to be somebody. The disciples had the same drive. They wanted to be recognized as important. What Jesus stressed in his lessons on the first being last and the last being first is, what makes us important is our servant hearts, not our prestigious accomplishments. I would probably rarely think of Jimmy Carter today if not for his work with Habitat. He would be just another former president, no more on my mind than any other former president. But his willingness to be a servant to families elevates him in my eyes and sets him up as an honorable role model. The first, or former in this case, is now servant, but while serving, he is doing so very much. This church is filled with servant hearts. It's Salem magic, the way things get done around here. We don't have to call the service master when we need a deep, thorough cleaning of this building and our grounds. We make an announcement to schedule a day, and the work gets done. Sometimes a bulk of the work gets done before the date even arrives for the work bee because people with beautiful servant hearts come in and get a head start on accomplishing the to-do list. They don't get their names engraved on a beautiful gold plaque that keeps track of who scrubbed the floor and toilet or who mowed and weeded, but they certainly are appreciated. For me, the servants in this church are my heroes. Your willingness to dig in and work is what has allowed this church to exist and what allows us to have ministry in this community. If we had to include all the cleaning and maintenance that gets done in our budget, there wouldn't be funds available for ministry here. Servant hearts are the foundation of this church. And that attitude extends into the way each of you live your lives, being willing to help each other and to rarely help strangers when we learn needs. In serving, you are important, very important. Our world cannot function without the gifts of time and talents that so many share with others. It's how we all learn life skills. Things like how to clean your own homes, or how to care for your own property, or to sew a button, or to put hair in a tire. Because someone was willing to serve by sharing their own knowledge with someone else, we grow and then can pass those blessings along to someone else. You aren't important because you have a bank account with a positive balance, or because you have a dependable car, or because your home is large and well furnished. You are important because you are willing to serve. You share your knowledge, you share your skills, you put sweat equity into making the world a better place. That is what makes you first. The disciples wanted to know who would have the seat of greatest honor. Jesus told them they didn't have time to sit around in fancy chairs. There are too many people in need of them to be sitting around patting themselves on the back. Serving is what is important. Serving joyfully, serving with love. That's how we live authentically as children of God. We do what we can to help others. May each of us always serve with a joyful